Hello, 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 hello. Check, 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 testing, check, check, check. Hello, 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 hello. Okay, that's good. Check the music sound. I think we're good. Okay, definitely hope you all are doing well today. If you stop by the stream, come by the stream, any of that later, feel free to leave a comment. Let me know your thoughts. We're going to dive into literally one of the greatest Star Wars books ever, series ever. And hope that, because nobody's here yet, maybe somebody will pop in, stop in the chat, leave their thoughts, comments, share. But definitely hope everybody had a good week. You know, we're finalizing the weekend basically, or technically this technically is the beginning of a new week. I still feel like it's not. I've always felt like a Sunday is still a part of the weekend. Um, but we are walking into a new week as of today, as we are drawing near to the end of October of 2023. We are getting ready to be 2 weeks out for the Ahsoka series from dropping, from finalizing, should I say, from episode 8. Again, from almost 2 weeks ago. It'll be 2 weeks this coming Tuesday, October 17th. I will be pushing out my review for episode 2 of the Ahsoka series on Tuesday in the community tab. Be on the lookout for that. I'm going to be looking to work on another Andor video today. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but yeah, didn't happen. So we're going to do that today. Hopefully that'll be pushed out for tomorrow. And like I said, just looking forward to what's to come for these last couple of months. When it's pertaining to just the channel in general, to just prepare for the last couple of months and a half of 2023 and prepare for 2024 next year, and what those 12 months will entail and hold, and what announcements may be coming, what trailers we may receive, what new things we may receive. I know that they did just recently announce Star Wars Adventures Season 2. That's supposed to be coming out for the kids. And even those of you adults who checked that out, I know that I checked out a few of the episodes. I just haven't finalized that. But it was a cute show from what I watched. So, with Season 1, or whichever, however you want to spill it, for the Ahsoka series is come and gone now. Many people are still thinking upon stuff. I have a video as far as Balin that I'm going to work on this week. Maybe that will be out Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday, something like that, hopefully. His character again, but then I'm gonna just be looking to work on some other stuff that I was doing on the channel but stopped, but I need to get back into. But as of today, I'm gonna dive into the prologue of this book. I'm gonna read. I don't necessarily like reading out loud, but I'm gonna read the prologue, give you my thoughts, what I was originally thinking when I first read the prologue, because right after the prologue is Memories 1. But as always, the audiobooks for these, for many of the other Star Wars books, which includes Mark Thompson, who narrates a lot of these type of books. I really, again, can't wait for Outbound Flight, December 19th, 2023 to arrive. Pre-ordered that with the quickness once it became available. I can't wait for the unabridged of that. And hopefully many more unabridged stuff will be coming soon that were abridged in the past, when it's pertaining to Legends books and stuff. So yeah, but I know for sure that once I dived into this book, I finalized it within, I want to say, I think a few days, if I remember correctly. And at the time, I didn't know that there was a limited edition version of this, but needless to say, I tried to attempt to. Well, I didn't try to attempt. I couldn't attempt to get the limited editions for the other two books because they were outside of my budget. So yeah, had I had the funds, yes, I would have definitely attempted to try. But definitely the limited edition books, I think the second and third literally like sold like hotcakes within moments, seconds, couple of minutes, less than a minute, whichever the case. And I was just like, wow. And then they started looking, scammers started to basically sell those books triple, quadruple the amount for the regular price. It's just like, dude, leave people alone. But there are people out there that did spend that type of money for those books, and I'm still sad about that for them and their bank account. But we're diving into the prologue here. I'm not that great of a reader, but I'm still going to do it anyway, just nervous as heck. But this is the prologue for Star Wars Thrawn Ascendency, Chaos Rising. Again, one of my favorite books for Thrawn, for his character, for the Ascendency, all of that stuff. But let's go. Like I said, if you want to leave a comment here a little bit later after the stream goes, because the stream may not be, it just depends on who may pop in and have a chat with me. But if you feel like leaving a comment later, feel free. Let me know your thoughts when you first read the prologue of the Ascendency, Chaos Rising. Let's dive into it. And it's crazy because when I think about the audiobook, it was just like deep voiced when the dude came in. Just like, oh man, like I wish I had that type of skill to project my voice that way. But here we go. For the very first page, before we actually dive into the prologue, reads, for thousands of years it has been an island of calm within the chaos. It is a center of power, a model of stability, and a beacon of integrity. The 9 ruling families guard it from within. The expansionary defense fleet guards it from without. I actually like that statement. Its neighbors are left in peace. Its enemies are left in ruin. It is light and culture and glory. It is the Chiss Ascendency. Just reading that alone, just rereading that, just like, man, like, I love that it says, like, you know, the 9 ruling families guard it from within, and the EDF, the expansionary defense fleet, guards it from without. And then it says its neighbors are left in peace, its enemies are left in ruin. It is light and culture and glory. It is Chiss Ascendency. Just that first, literally initial opening before we even dive into the prologue is just like super dope. I just love that because it lets you know, like, this is how the Ascendancy stands, its core values, how it functions, what it protects to keep safe, what it protects it from, you know, all of that stuff. That was just really cool when I first read that opening. And now we dive into the prologue. The attack on the Chiss Ascendancy world of Chila was sudden, unexpected, and despite its limited scope, impressively efficient. And that's one of the things that the Chiss are about. The Chiss are about efficiency, more so including our Grand Admiral. The three large warships came out of hyperspace and on wildly spaced vectors, driving inward toward the planet with spectrum lasers blazing at full power toward the defense platforms and orbiting Chiss Defense Force warships. The platforms and ships, caught by surprise, nevertheless took less than a minute to begin returning fire. By then, the attackers had altered their directions, angling in toward the cluster of lights spread across the icy planetary surface that marked the capital city of Saplar. Their lasers continued to fire, and as they came within range, they added salvos of missiles to their attack. And like just stuff like this, when the chapters, or even like the prologue, when it opens up, and it's one of those things that a lot of times movies, TV shows, anime, stuff like that, where I talked about this in the past stream, where there are people out there that need instant gratification. They need to be captured, captivated, your attention grasped immediately within the first 30 seconds. Stuff like this can do that when it's pertaining to the viewer. But as always, this stuff is subjective. There are people out there that don't want just automatic battles, fights. They're looking to possibly look to see characters gain what they're, how they've been written, the plot for these characters, stuff like that, before we would dive into something like this. But Mr. Timothy Zahn, he was just like, I feel like for him, he was just like, well, we're just gonna just automatically just push out the reader. We're gonna capture their mind, their heart, automatically, possibly raise their blood pressure with anxiety, to get this battle in space going right away. And continuing reading, it says, but ultimately it was all for nothing. The defense platforms easily picked off the incoming missiles while the warships targeted the attacking ships themselves, blasting into rubble and making sure that any fragments entering the atmosphere were too small to survive the journey. Within 15 minutes of the attack force's arrival, it was over. And that's just crazy. 15 minutes. Think about that. From the start of the seconds, it ended within 15 minutes. And it makes me wonder if possibly there are cases that where something could happen and it could happen within a few minutes. I mean, we do see stuff like that. We do see that a lot, even in anime, where an anime fight can technically be 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes in a row of a fight, but it only really lasts just a few minutes. It's just that it's just a whole bunch of stuff that's wrapped around it to cause it to be such a long thing. Continuing to read, it says, the threat had ended. Supreme General Bakif thought grimly as he strode down the central corridor toward the cupola, where the syndics, and other aristocrat were assembling after making their way back from the shelters. Now came the real sound and fury, and there would be plenty of both. As the supreme ruling body of the Ascendency, the Syndicure liked to project an image of thoughtfulness, nobility, and unflappable dignity. Most of the time, aside from the inevitable political wrangling, that was close enough to the truth. But not today. The Syndicure had been in full session, and the speakers had had their own private meetings scheduled for later in the afternoon, which meant nearly all the Ascendancy's top-level aristocrats had been in the offices, corridors, and meeting rooms when the alarm sounded. The shelters deep within the cupola were reasonably roomy and marginally comfortable, but it had been decades since the last direct attack on Chile, and Bakif doubted any of the current government officials had ever been down there. And that's true too. A lot of times, specific sections, not you don't see too many management and higher ups go into specific places a lot of times. I mean, if you a person who has a job and you know who the owners are, the executives are, you know you even know who your boss is. A lot of times you don't see those people, you don't see those faces that much. You may see them every 2 to 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, where they just pop in to show their face, or because something specific needs to be done, or they need to see somebody specific, or which includes your boss. You do get that happening a lot of times, where there are certain sections that these specific people don't go to, like, hardly ever within a decade. Like, you may only see them once or twice within 10 years or 20 years or whatever the case may be, unless you randomly bump into them or randomly see them when you're walking in and out of the building that you work on a daily basis. So that's definitely something. And then, they don't, of course, they don't know your name. They probably only met you once. That's why I'm saying, like, I feel like if I was an owner, like me personally, I would be like, look, I need to go see the staff that I have placed in trust of other management that have hired them. I need to go see them. I need to get to know them. I need at least first name. To me, friendships are built on first names, type of thing. Trust as well. You know what I mean? So, and one of those trusting things is that you would show up. You wouldn't see them in a big meeting that the entire company should, would see them, and then you won't hear from them or see them, for a good while. Like I said, 5 years, 10 years, But yeah, continuing to read. 2 hours of forced idleness while the defense force waited to see if there would be a follow-up attack hadn't gone over well with them, and Bakif had no illusions that the coming storm would be thoughtful, noble, or unflappable. He was right. What I want to know, the speaker of the Usfa family spoke up after Bakif had finished his report, is who the aliens are who dared to think they could get away with an attack against us. A name, General. We want a name. Bakif goes on to speak. I'm afraid I can't give you one, Speaker, Bakif said. Speaker says, why not? Demanded. Speaker demanded. You have debris, don't you? You have data records and bodies and weapons, profiles. Surely a name can be gleaned from all of that. Ultimately, this conversation, this stuff like that, this happens too because, he's coming from a perspective of, like this prologue chapter said, just a few sentences above that, stuff hadn't occurred in definitely a decade. There hasn't been anything, and the speaker is automatically wanting to gain at least a name. And of course, Bakif doesn't have one from where he stands currently. Going on, reading some more. The Ascendency has been attacked, the speaker of the myth family cut in gravely, as if the others might somehow have missed that fact. We need to know who to punish for such arrogance. Yes, the Usfa said, throwing a brief glare down the table. Bakif suppressed a sigh. In times gone by, the major threats to the Ascendency had usually drawn the ruling families into a unity that superseded the usual political maneuvering. He'd held a small hope that today's attack might spark such a response. Clearly, that wasn't going to happen. In the case of Usfa and Myth, in particular, those families were in the midst of a particular tangled campaign with a newly opened mining field on, I want to believe that this says Theatera as the prize, and the Usfa was clearly annoyed at having some of his spotlight stolen by his family's current chief rival. More than that, he added, his glare daring the myth to interrupt again, we need assurance that the defense force has the resources to defend the Chiss against further action by these unidentified enemies. So, the these families, the head councils, stuff like that, these are the things that we know they usually would have weekly meetings about how certain areas or all areas within, say, the Ascendancy are functioning, if things are going well, what needs to be changed, what needs to be fixed, what needs to continue to be built upon. We know that this stuff occurs on a daily basis. And then something like this occurs, that's when they look at, say the Defense Force, they look at the variables of why something occurred, who possibly was, even though, the one is saying we need a name for the specific group that came in here and came to our house, but then they still may look at each other. They may look at a specific department that was at the forefront of the start of everything, like who possibly maybe saw something but saw it at the last second before it happened. They're looking at all of this stuff, trying to figure out why this happened, and of course, like I said, who were the perpetrators in causing this to occur. So this stuff, these conversations happens on a daily basis. And then, like I said, once an attack like this does indeed occur, yeah, there's a lot of questioning, a lot of pointing fingers, as they're trying to look to definitely punish the enemies, but then they're also going to, punish specific people in a specific department, or maybe all departments type of thing. But reading on, the Questus data link reader lying on the table in front of Bakif lit up as a fresh report came in. He picked it up, propping it at an angle on his left palm while he slid his finger along the edge to scroll the screen. And which is funny because it's basically like an iPad, right? He's just like looking at it, he goes like this. And it kind of reminds me of Yularen when he was looking at his miniature tablet with the reports, information from Partagas and Dedra in, if I remember correctly, it was episode 7 or 8, one of the two, maybe 6. And even Dedra, back in episode 4, she did that with her thing. She was scrolling up, trying to figure out some information before she was just like, all right, let me go talk to Blevin, about this thing to get this information. Of course, we know Blevin, if you remember correctly, he turned her down, giving her the information. But moving on. Okay. The Syndicate, this is, when I say this is Bakif speaking, the Syndicate need not be concerned about their safety, he said. I've just received word that 4 additional warships from the expansionary fleet have been rushed in from Naparor and are now moving to support the defense force. Ships already in place. He winced to himself. Young men and women ready to give their lives to protect their homeworld, noble and honorable, and a sacrifice, if it was ever required, that he and everyone else currently in the cupola knew would be a complete and utter waste, which is interesting. He says that it would be a complete and utter waste. That is interesting. Fortunately, it didn't look like any such sacrifice would be needed today. And then he says, it goes on, it says, and if they attack other worlds within the Ascendancy, the Usfa pressed. Oh, that was Ufa. That wasn't Bakif. That was a question. Bakif responds in saying, other ships have already been sent to bolster the patrol forces of the neighboring systems in case they are the targets of subsequent attacks. Which is something that you will want to do too, because, you never know. Like, it might not just be that they attacked just that spot. They may have been one target, then they have other targets, or technically the whole entire diaspora of the Ascendancy, but they may say, okay, we do see a lot of times that a specific target may be a distraction to get a lot of forces, a lot of people to go over there in that one designated spot, where it's just a distraction to go to the main source of what they're trying to get to. That possibly could be the case where somebody goes in and be like, all right, the actual stuff that we need to get and grasp is literally over here, but we're going to distract them by going over here, which is definitely smart. Has anyone else reported attacks or enemy sightings? The speaker of the Clar asked. Not as yet, Speaker, Bakif told him. As far as we can tell, this is an isolated incident. Again, like I said, they automatically sent ships and stuff to other places just in case, but they are viewing it as just an isolated incident, as Bakif was saying. The speaker for the Obik family gave a theatrical little snort. I'd seriously doubt that, General. No one sends warships against the Ascendancy on a lark and then goes home. Someone out there is plotting against us. That someone needs to be found and taught a serious lesson. And then that's when the whole conversation goes off. They, I guess per the scene, after that statement, the story just moves on, because more than likely it was more conversations, more back and forth. And then that's when we get to what we're getting ready to get to here, which is, it went on that way for another hour in each of the 9 ruling families and many of the great families who had aspirations of joining the elite group, making sure to get their outrage and determination on record. It was, for the most part, a waste of Bakif's time. Fortunately, extensive experience in the military taught him how to listen to politicians with half his mind while focusing on the other half on more urgent matters. Speakers and syndics wanted to know who had attacked the Ascendancy. They were looking in the wrong direction. And I feel like that's what Bakif was pretty much saying. Like, he was just like, it's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. We're basically getting nowhere with, all of this back and forth. This whole hour and a half, 2 hour long, we need a name. Why did this happen? Who and where? Let's send ships this way. Let's send ships that way. Blah, blah, blah. It's the Bakif's, from his perspective, it's the typical political jargon that he's been used to for however long in his position. He's just like, well, look, we just need to focus on this one thing. Everybody else focus on everything else. So yeah. Going on to read, speakers and syndics wanted to know who attacked the Ascendancy. But okay. The more interesting question was not who, but why. Because the Obik had been right. No one attacked Chila for the fun of it. That went double for an attack that would cost 3 major warships without providing any obvious gain. Either the attacker had misjudged badly, or else he'd achieved a more subtle goal. What could such a goal look like? That's what I was talking about, where I said that, they look to attack one spot, use it as a distraction to actually go per their, like the chapter says here, even the subtle goal, which is over in another direction. Going on to read, it says, the majority of the Syndicure clearly assumed the attack had been a prelude to a more sustained campaign. And once they finished their posturing, they would undoubtedly start urging the defense force to pull its ships inward for the protection of the major systems. More than that, they would probably insist the expansionary defense fleet likewise withdraw from the borders to augment them. Was that the goal? To keep the chiss looking inward and not outward? In which case, bowing to the Sindicure's demand for security would play directly into the enemy's hands. On the other hand, if the syndics were right about this being the start of the full-fledged campaign, leaving the expansionary fleet out in the chaos could be an equally fatal move. Either way, if they guessed wrong, it would be too late to correct the error by the time they knew the truth. And that's one of the major things that, and it's a core thing that many situations that you have to think about, is that you don't want to overthink and overanalyze stuff like this, because you come together, you butt heads and stuff, and then somebody says, okay, we're just going to just go do this, and that could be an error. Even the smallest of error could have a major impact in its entirety on the whole situation. And it's just one of those things that you want to be as careful as possible, making the best decision that's technically gonna seem to be the right decision, and you hope that that decision doesn't come back to bite you in the butt later on. And then it says, but as Bakif weighed the possibilities, it occurred to him that there was one other possibility. Perhaps the attack wasn't meant to draw the Ascendancy's attention from something that was about to happen, but to distract it from something that had already happened. And that possibility, at least, he could look into right now. I can't read this word here. I want to say it's surreptitiously, if I butchered that word. He keyed a search order into his Questus. Midway through the cupola session, as he continued to make his soothing noises to his aristocrat, he had the answer. Maybe. One of Bakif's aides was waiting when the general finally made it back to his office. Were you able to locate him? Bakif asked. Yes, sir, the aide said. He's on Napier, undergoing his final round of physical therapy for the injury sustained during the Vagari pirate operations. Bakif's scold. Operations that, while successful in a military sense, have been a complete disaster on the political front. Months later, many of the aristocrats were still brooding over that whole mess. When will he be free? Whenever you wish, sir, the aide said. He said he would be at your disposal whenever you wanted him. Good, Bakif said, checking the time. Half an hour to bring the Whirlwind to flight status. Whirlwind is his ship. 4 hours to get to Napier, another half hour to get a shuttle down to the Chiss Expansionary Fleet Med Center. Inform him that I want him ready in 5 hours. And that's just one of those things, efficiency. You want to start leaving, it's going to take X amount of hours, and it's going to take an extra several minutes or past several minutes to actually get to where he needs to go. Yes, sir, the aide hesitated. Do you want the order logged, or does this qualify as a private trip? Log it, Bakif said. The aristocrat might be unhappy when they find out about this. The Syndicure might even assemble a tribunal somewhere down the line to waste more of its time with useless questions. But Bakif was going to do things strictly by the book. Order from Supreme General Bakif, he continued, hearing his voice drop in the tone he always used for former orders and reports. Preparing transport for myself and Senior Captain Thrawn Naruto. Destination Daiwa. Purpose: investigation of a derelict ship found 2 days ago in the outer system. Yes, sir, the aide said briskly. His voice was studiously neutral, giving away nothing of his own personal feelings on the matter. Not all those who thought poorly of Captain Thrawn, after all, were members of the aristocrat. At the moment, Bakif didn't care about any of them. He found the first half of the why. Now there was only one person he trusted to come up with the other half. And that pretty much is the end of the prologue, and then we will dive into the memories part 1, which we will do that next time, probably this week. But the opening prologue, like I said, like I was saying, there are many people out there that need instant gratification right away. It starts off with the battle. It starts and begins, and then past several minutes, 15 minutes in total, it ends. And then, of course, there's this scramble of politicians and generals and various people in authority at the Ascendancy coming together to have a powwow of wondering who, what, when, and where. But ultimately, like Bucky was thinking, was more so of the why. Why was this happening? From the specific group of characters that decided to attack the Ascendancy, which there was an attack in definitely a decade. It's been a good while. And Bucky did think in his mind that it was a waste of his time, waste of everybody's time, technically, to basically say, like, okay, we're sitting here for, 2 hours, 3 hours conversating about all of this stuff, right? But, excuse me, but ultimately, Bucky, he puts in his brain saying maybe it was something that already occurred. He needs to figure out why, which of course he calls for Thrawn. Now, interesting enough, in the prologue, they say Thrawn's full name, right? But then they also mention the Thrawn. They take out the Mithra and the Naruto, and Naruto, and just mention Thrawn. You know, that to me, after reading that part for the first time, I was just like, oh, they're gonna just, give us the whole name and then just shorten it down to just Thrawn, which was just really, really cool to see. Now, of course, they definitely do it with Bakif. You know what I'm saying? Because Bakif's full name is one thing, but we just get the Bakif. So it's just like you can tell per what Mr. Zahn was looking to do. He was looking to say, okay, we could technically go with these characters' full names, but we're just gonna just take the middle of their names and go with that. So at least we have that in place for these characters. So again, it was just cool to have Bakif have his name. Again, like I said, he was technically annoyed by all of the stuff that was happening in this meeting of the minds, trying to just listen to people, say what he had to say, and more than likely didn't talk much after that, after so many, half hour, 45 minutes that went by, and he was just listening to people go back and forth. And like I said, pointing fingers. More than likely, people were saying, okay, but who was, what department was there when it first occurred? Why did it occur? Who, what supervisor or manager was in place? Get them to my office or to various offices where we're going to look to, handle them. Because if they survive, blah, 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 we need to basically come down on them and maybe the rest of the department. More than likely that occurred during this meeting to try to figure out, again, like, who were they? Like they said, talking about they needed a name per this prologue. But ultimately, Bakif, his mindset was, we have the who, we were looking for the who, we know the what, we know the where. Ultimately, why is this occurring? Why did this happen? And does this affect something that has already occurred? And that lets you know that, interesting enough, the story is going to veer in a specific direction and more than likely go in a totally opposite direction. Because we know that in various shows, there's always just, for the most part, there's one direction and eventually it veers in a totally different direction. And, just like with this situation with the Ascendancy and this attack, they're looking to figure out who did it and why did they do it. But again, Bakif is like, okay, we're going to figure out who it was. But why did they do it? And did something already occur as this was going on? Or probably just before it happened? And he's going to go have a conversation with Thrawn, bring him in, and look to, because he knows that more than likely Thrawn specializes in stuff like this. So he was just like, I'm going to just go with Captain Thrawn. He's going to come in. We're going to use his specialty, his mind, and we're going to figure this out moving forward. And he's the best chess person to be able to actually do this for the Ascendancy for us. But yeah, such a great opening to the prologue. Like I said, many people need instant gratification. Those first few words just before the prologue was cool, but then that's when we get the actual battle. And I know a lot of fans, when they first read those first couple of paragraphs, they were locked in immediately. When other fans may say, "Well, I don't. Why do we have to start off with a battle?" I mean, and again, that's also typical Star Wars. We know that in the New Hope and various other the Star Wars films, a lot of stuff happened, which was a space battle. You know what I mean? And here in the book, Sheila got attacked immediately from some ships. Starships got sent out. I want to say three, from if I remember correctly from the prologue, three of them got damaged or even taken out. So, yeah, more than likely some casualties, definitely some injuries. It's gonna cost them some chess money. Yeah, got to figure this stuff out. But that's pretty much the prologue, guys. We're gonna dive into the Memories 1 this week. It all depends on what my schedule is. But definitely Friday. I'm off Friday, but I have probably a couple things to do. But other than that, I'm definitely going to look to do another reading chapter for this book on Friday this week. But I will look to probably push for Wednesday at best, maybe Tuesday. It just depends on work for me, and if I'm focused and not tired from work. So we'll see what happens. But the prologue, the opening was great. Got the space, got the opening battle. Ascendency definitely got attacked. We have the politicians and generals and stuff having a back and forth for like 2-3 hours. But now we got to figure out why this occurred. Of course, we're going to get the name of who did it. But, Bakif is looking to use Thrawn now to figure out extra stuff that everybody else wasn't thinking about. And I love that Bakif was just like, okay, that's why he didn't bring it up to them, because he knew that they would sort of like, that doesn't make sense, or why would you think that? That doesn't sound right. We're going to focus on this, and more than likely have them tell him like, oh, don't do that. Don't go in that direction. So that's why he's doing it off on the side on his own. So yeah, Prologue was a fun opening for Chaos Rising, guys, and I can't wait to read with you all and share my thoughts of Memories 1 to come. But with that, I will hopefully talk to you all on another video and or stream. Be on the lookout for another and or video this week, hopefully tomorrow, and then hopefully another video to come in the week, later on in the week, and then of course the streams to come soon. But with that, stay safe, stay humble, guys, and remember, the Force